Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, on Instagram at Movies TV Mad 555, and on TikTok at Movies TV Mad XXX. Just remember, I'm banned till tomorrow, I think, on TikTok, so I won't be posting on there. Welcome to Wednesday's edition of the DCEU Daily, and on today's show, I'm going to name the greatest DCEU movie of all time. We're also going to discuss Restore the Snyderverse and how well the Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut is selling over in the US. It was launched yesterday and already the shelves are empty, so we'll be discussing that as well. So let's kind of go through the films that are in my list in contention to be the greatest DCEU movie of all time. So there's Man of Steel, there's Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, there's Wonder Woman, there's Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut, there's Aquaman, there's Shazam. I believe those 6 movies are great comic book movies. Whether you agree with that or not, maybe you're an MCU shill who thinks your franchise is better because you judge it on the box office. Well, your movies are not better than our movies, not the movies that I've named. No, and I don't care about the box office. I simply don't care. My enjoyment and my love and my views and opinions about films have nothing to do with box office. I don't care that Shang-Chi has had a great opening. I don't care that the MCU franchise is a consistent franchise that's very popular and in fashion right now. I will debate any MCU fan that the 6 films I've just mentioned are better than the MCU films. So let's now go through them and decide which one is the greatest DCEU movie of all time. Man of Steel for me is a brilliant film and a brilliant Superman movie. Now, it's not made in kind of like a typical Superman film or a superhero film. It's made a bit like a thriller. It's an adrenaline rush from start to finish. In fact, when the film finishes, you need the fix to continue. That's how good the movie is. But I think it's a visual feast, it's an emotional feast, and I think the performances, especially Henry Cavill's, especially Michael Shannon, who absolutely shine in this movie, Amy Adams, Russell Crowe as Jor-El, who I wanted to be Jor-El 10 years before. So it was a great pick by Snyder. So Man of Steel has everything a modern movie blockbuster fan would want. Everything. Now, the traditionalists were very upset because Superman broke Zod's neck. Now, I understand their complaints. They're not complaints that I had myself. My only issue with Zod dying in that film is that we couldn't see him again. Of course, we did see his kind of dead body again in Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. But the only thing I would say is you don't kill, you don't blunt your best tools. And you could have used Shannon again. Maybe Shannon didn't want to come back anyway. Who knows? But Shannon is one of the best comic book supervillains of all time. I would put him above Heath Ledger's Joker and others that people think are amazing. He is so good. So it's a great movie. So that's there as one of my selections that could be the greatest DCEU movie of all time. Then we go to the much maligned, much divisive Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. I remember going to see this in the cinema, and because of the marketing I was shocked. The opening is really understated when we see Batman's origin story and we see the beautiful narration from Ben Affleck, but I liked it. I liked Zimmer's and Junkie XL's piano music. I like what I see, and it's visually brilliant. So we learn about this Batman, and I know people complain not the origin story yet again, but they're showing us this origin story for a reason, because of the Martha moment. Now, if you don't understand the Martha moment, or you mock the Martha moment, maybe take notice in that opening of Ben Affleck's narration. It is beautiful. Listen to the words, then you'll finally understand. Now, Batman vs Superman may be a very different film. As I said, it's probably the most expensive indie film of all time. A superhero movie made in the style of an independent movie, because that's where Snyder comes from. He started, his career started as a director doing ads. So Snyder is a great director, whether you like him or not. That's my opinion. I have other opinions about him, balanced opinions. I don't think he conducted himself really well during the build-up to the release of the Snyder Cut, and I think there's some things he and Ray Fisher should have just kept to themselves, and maybe we would have had the Snyderverse by now restored, but never mind. I still love him. I think he's a great guy, and I think he directed a great movie, and I love it. I love the film, not because it's actually telling a story. I don't mind Batman and Superman being deconstructed, because by the end of the film, they're reconstructed. The moment when Superman decides to sacrifice his life and to fight Doomsday with the kryptonite, he's made the decision that Earth, humanity, Lois Lane, even Batman and Wonder Woman are more important than him. Now people say, why didn't he just allow Wonder Woman to do that instead? He would never do that, because there's no guarantee she would have survived that. And he would rather sacrifice himself than sacrifice another hero or any other life form. So at that moment, he is reconstructed, and it's great. You should have no issue with the role of Superman, because he rises again. It's a bit like, I don't know, Superman 3. When Superman has that dodgy green kryptonite handed to him by Gus Gorman, and he becomes evil, but then he fights himself and he becomes good. He's kind of deconstructed in that film and reconstructed again. I know some people had issues with it. I think Chris played evil Superman a bit too well, but very convincing. But it was great, and so was BVS. BVS has a lot of construction to it, a lot of development to it. It's got great action set pieces, but what the film's trying to say, I think, is sensational. So I love Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, and that could be very easily the greatest DCEU movie of all time. We will have to wait and see. Now the next film, Wonder Woman 2017, the first Wonder Woman film, don't forget, we've already had a great introduction to Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman and Diana Prince in Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. Now normally, when I kind of decide in what order these DCEU films stand in, from best to worst, and I hate from that, I would rather call it a ranking. Wonder Woman 2017, the first Wonder Woman film, is normally my top pick. But that might not be the case this time, so we'll have to wait and see. But I love the film. I think it's a perfect comic book movie. I think it's amazing. It has everything. It has a great lead in Gal Gadot. I think Chris Pine is sensational. I think he's a co-lead in the film. I don't think he's kind of a supporting character. I would call him a co-lead, and him and Gal are just beautiful on screen together. I mean, you've heard my complaints about, what's her name, Zendaya and Tom Holland having no chemistry, and I genuinely believe that, even though there's rumours they're dating in real life. But I don't think that's a good matchup. But in terms of Chris Pine and Gal Gadot, the chemistry is electric. It works. The emotional element of the film, the beginning in Themyscira, Fantasy Island, is beautiful. Lily Aspel kills it as young Diana. It's brilliant. Robin Wright is brilliant. The actress who plays the Queen, who plays Diana's mother, is absolutely fantastic. And then we go to kind of the modern world, and look, the whole film is exciting, emotional, bags of character development, and we have a great little superhero, supervillain fight at the end. And I know a lot of people have issues with that third act. I do not. So then we go to Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. There's no point talking about Justice League, no point talking about films that are not on my list. So Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut is a film that we all fought for. We never thought at times we were going to get it. They said it didn't exist. It absolutely does exist. This film is absolutely sensational. It is not your typical, again, superhero movie. It's done in a very, very different, unique way, but it works. The 4 hours runtime gives everything time to breathe. There are so many sensational moments. And I mean, what other superhero film, apart from Logan, by the way, because they did it with Logan, looks great in colour, but then looks even better in black and white and still feels like a great movie, maybe even a greater movie. And I think I would say the same thing about Logan. It's a great movie, it has so many elements for it, and it's our first movie version, live action version of Darkseid, and he's fucking epic. He's dangerous, and I love Steppenwolf as well. The whole thing works. It's a beautiful achievement from Zack Snyder. And if not rushed to put that together and put all those VFX sequences together, it could have been even better. I'm not doing the movie down, but it's clear in some aspects that it was rushed. And if it wasn't cancelled when it was, we wouldn't have seen kind of the comparity of Affleck when he was filming this back in 2016, 2015. He had a bit more weight on him, and then they kind of did some reshoots for the movie where he looks a lot slimmer. But I'm not complaining. I'm happy I saw the movie. I'm happy I possessed the movie on Amazon Prime Video, on Blu-ray, on DVD. I've got the fucking lot. I love the film. The film is an auteur's wet fucking dream. It's a brilliant movie. It's almost a perfect movie. It fucking works. Now, you know I've spoken about kind of the flaws of doing a Superman rebirth story in a Justice League movie, and that takes a lot of screen time away from Superman. But I love the movie. It really, really works, and I enjoyed it. Then we go to Aquaman. Aquaman is a visually emotional marvel, no pun intended, because I'm fed up with that fucking word Marvel. I'm trying to avoid the MCU. I'm fed up of them. I'm fed up of them. But Aquaman is just, you know, I think it even shows the MCU how to do, you know, superhero movies that can have gags, excitement, emotion. There's that moment when Arthur returns to Atlantis and they're in the kind of cruiser and he's looking around and he looks a bit intimidated. Great performance by Jason Momoa, by the way. And all is brilliant. We have got a great villain. We have a great hero. I think Amber Heard's mirror is amazing. Nicole Kidman is sensational. Even Dolph Lundgren looks like he can act in this movie. Look, I love this movie. I saw this in the cinema. I had an early viewing of it. One of my early videos hit, you know, thousands and hundreds of thousands of views when I first spoke about what I thought about that film. And a lot of you have been following me and subscribing to me ever since. And you know I appreciate your views. But you know that I have a balanced view of the kind of Snyderverse and the DCEU. And although I'm biased towards DC and the DCEU, even though I think the DCEU is a great franchise from a certain point of view, in the point of these individual movies, in the context of a cohesive franchise, it's not as good as the MCU. But where it beats the MCU is the quality of these individual 6 movies I'm talking about. So we go from Aquaman to David F. Sandberg's Shazam. David F. Sandberg is a Cinderella story. He started off doing YouTube videos showing people how to do effects, shots, things like that. He's a beautiful man, he's a very funny man, and he made, coming from horror as well, he made a funny, emotionally, family-charged movie, and I absolutely love it. I think Asher Angel and Zachary Levi as the lead character are fantastic. I love Freddie Freeman. I feel that Freddie Freeman is me, this superhero fan who can't shut up about superheroes. It's almost like I'm watching myself doing one of these shows. He's great. The other kids are great. The parents are great. The villain is fucking great as well. I love the villain. Look, this is just a fun time at the movies. I wouldn't say it's one of my favourite DCEU movies or comic book movies, but I like it. And I like the fact that my nieces and nephews and my brothers and sisters could all go and watch this film together. So I love Shazam. So I think that's, let me think, are there any other movies? So what's after Shazam? So it would be Joker, that's not part of the DCEU, then it would be Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman 84. So I think we've spoken about my picks for the best DCEU movie of all time, but which one is it? Well, it's Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. As I've already said, this film is beautiful, unique, compelling. It works in every sequence for me. No one is ever going to make a superhero movie, you know, like this. And if this is all we get from Snyder in the DCEU, and we'll talk about that more a little bit later on, because you know I've changed my mind a bit. Sometimes I think it's a possibility, sometimes I think it's impossible. And I'm actually going to read a Variety article from March when Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut was, released, saying how Snyder's film is an improvement on, Joss Whedon's movie, but you or me could be standing in the bathroom, passing wind, and it would be a better thing to watch than Justice League. We all know that. But we've got to be fair. Joss Whedon came in to do a hard gig, and I don't even think he realised how hard it was going to be when he said yes. He just wanted to do his Batgirl movie. It was unfair to ask him to have the same schedule as Zack Snyder when they wanted him to reshoot and rewrite the movie. So, in a lot of ways, what happened with that movie isn't his fault. He couldn't handle the pressure, and he took it out on the cast and crew, and that's not right. But Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut, for me, is the best DCEU movie of all time at this point. In fact, it could very well be, in the modern age, in the 21st century, the best comic book movie ever made. Now, I don't want to compare it with things from the 80s like, Superman and Superman 2, because they didn't have the tools that Zack did to make those movies. So it's not really fair to compare those movies. But for me, it's my favourite DCEU movie. Now, let's go to this article. How the Justice League Snyder Cut reverses Joss Whedon's version by Adam B. Vary. Now, this is interesting because I thought this was a new article when I decided to read it on today's DCEU Daily. It's actually posted on March the 18th, 2021. I was actually hoping this was new because they have big connections with Warner Brothers Variety, and I thought maybe Warner Brothers are changing their minds. So, anyway, for years, Zack Snyder's fans have been left to wonder what exactly had changed from his original vision for Justice League to what debuted in theatres in 2017. All anyone's known for certain was that in May 2017, Warner Brothers announced that Snyder was leaving the film due to a family tragedy, and Joss Whedon, writer-director of Marvel Studios' beloved blockbuster The Avengers, and less beloved, less blockbustery Avengers Age of Ultron. I think Age of Ultron gets a lot of hate, I don't think it's that bad. And I think the themes are a lot darker as well. Was taking over as screenwriter and director. Some changes were obvious. The Justice League reshoots occurred while a moustache Henry Cavill was in production on Paramount's Mission Impossible Fallout. So Warner Brothers had to digitally shave Cavill's upper lip in his new scenes, and the results were a special kind of terrible. Whedon also brought his lighter, jokier tone to the script, which sat in awkward opposition to Snyder's more earnest and solemn approach. There was apparently a marked difference in Whedon's approach off-camera as well. Last summer, Justice League star Ray Fisher alleged that Whedon engaged in gross, abusive, unprofessional and completely unacceptable behaviour on the set of the film. Allegations publicly supported by co-stars Jason Momoa and Gal Gadot. Whedon has never commented on the allegations. It wasn't until an unrelenting campaign by Snyder's fans forced Warner Brothers to allow Snyder to complete his version of Justice League that the full breadth of Whedon's changes to the movie became clear. Now that 2017's Justice League and 2021's Zack Snyder's Justice League are both available on HBO Max, subscribers can see for themselves that Whedon either cut, altered or completely reshot practically every scene in Snyder's original vision. To be clear, he was working off of orders from the studio. He was ordered to change it, or no Batgirl movie. Ironically, he didn't get that movie anyway. Some of these decisions appear to be practical. Snyder has said that Warner Brothers demanded Justice League run at 2 hours, while his version runs just over 4 hours. Other decisions, however, appear to be driven by fundamental loss of faith in Snyder's mythic approach to the DC universe. None of the changes, however, altered the core plot of Justice League. Both films are still about Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, Ben Affleck, recruiting a team of superheroes in order to stop an alien invasion led by Steppenwolf, Kieran Hines, who wants to remake the world by uniting the three ancient alien devices called Mother Boxes that have been hidden away on Earth for millennia. In both films, Bruce first recruits Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman, Gadda, before convincing Barry Allen, aka The Flash, Ezra Miller, Victor Stone, aka Cyborg, Fisher, and Arthur Curry, aka Aquaman Momoa, to join them. After a battle with Steppenwolf underneath Gotham City Harbour leaves the team reeling, they use the last mother box to resurrect the body of Clark Kent, aka Superman Henry Cavill, and then battle Steppenwolf inside an abandoned nuclear power plant in the abandoned wilds of Russia. While the story may be the same, how these films tell it is often radically different. Here are the biggest and most telling differences between Whedon's Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Throughout the 2017 Justice League, Whedon wrote several brand new scenes that for obvious reasons are not included in the Snyder Cut. Most of these scenes involve Affleck's Bruce Wayne, including a new opening with Batman on a Gotham rooftop, using a fear of a random burglar to lure and capture a parademon, Steppenwolf's flying henchman, how Batman first learned about parademons and that they can sense fear is never explained, one of many storytelling logic leaps made in Whedon's version that Snyder's assiduously avoids. And basically the reason that Whedon doesn't explain anything is because he knows he hasn't got any time to explain anything. That's the difference. A couple of new scenes are more driven by character, like an exchange before the third act between Bruce and Diana about the pressures of leadership and heroism. I actually think that's a pretty good scene, pretty solid by Whedon. Most of them, however, especially the ones between Bruce and Alfred, Jeremy Irons, or with the Justice League inside the Batcave, are expositional in nature, compressing the plot of shorthanding a character's backstory. The latter is best typified by Victor telling Barry that he became cyborg due to an explosion, an explanation that begs for more detail that never comes again. He's trying to save time. In all of these scenes, Whedon's dialogue leans on the idea that these characters are at the centre, recognisably human and flawed, i.e. the Marvel Comics approach to superhero storytelling. This is directly at odds with Snyder's conviction that what sets the DC superheroes apart is that they are gods among humans driven by highest ideals. And I agree with Snyder there. I don't disagree with that. This is no better demonstrated than in the critical sense in which Bruce, Diana, Barry, Victor and Arthur decide to use the mother box to bring Clark back to life. This scene also exists in the Snyder Cut, but Whedon rewrote and reshot it completely to make the discussion into an argument between Bruce, who believes Clark needs to be resurrected, ethics be damned, and Diana, who believes meddling with death is a bad idea. That argument turns personal when Diana evokes Bruce's guilt at Clark's death, and Bruce mentions Diana's long dead love, Steve Trevor, basically because, as Victor puts it, he's an arsehole. The contentious nature of the scene evokes a similar sequence in Whedon's The Avengers, when the MCU superheroes devolve into a lengthy argument about their purpose and motivations, but the kind of interpersonal squabbling that feels right in a Marvel movie doesn't really work in the Justice League. In Snyder's version, the hero's big concern is that awakening the mother box to resurrect Superman will allow Steppenwolf and the parademons to find it and use it to remake the world. The tension isn't in a fight over the ethics of resurrecting a single dead hero, but in deciding to risk bringing about Armageddon, you know, God stuff. Perhaps the most pointed addition Whedon made to Justice League was creating a Russian family terrorised by the parademons as Steppenwolf builds out his lair. Do we remember that bit when that little girl's actually got fly spray? That's supposed to be funny. Through the final act of the film, the Flash and later Superman are preoccupied with saving these civilians, a knowing critique of Snyder's Man of Steel, in which Superman battles General Zod throughout Metropolis without consideration for the thousands of civilians dying in the rubble beneath them. There are no Russian civilians in the Snyder Cut. Right, can I just take Adam back on that? I know that's a criticism of Man of Steel. Imagine being Superman, fighting Zod. What time have you got to worry about what's going beneath you? Of course he's concerned. I've said that's a little bit of a mistake, that he didn't at least have any regret about that at the end of the movie. So clearly Snyder, Nolan and Goyer didn't care either. As noted earlier, practically all of the scenes from Snyder's Justice League that Whedon kept in the 2017 version were changed in some way. Often it was to make the scene shorter. The best example is the sequence set on Diana's home of Themyscira when Steppenwolf arrives with his parademons to obtain the mother box kept in a vault there. In Whedon's version, the sequence Steppenwolf's arrival, Queen Hippolyta, Connie Nielsen, taking the mother box and sealing Steppenwolf inside the vault. Steppenwolf breaking free and beating back the Amazons as they try to keep the box from him. Steppenwolf succeeding and teleporting away starts roughly 22 minutes into the movie and lasts for about 5 minutes in total, a big difference of course. In the Snyder Cut, the sequence starts at almost the same point in the movie at the 25-minute mark, but it runs more than twice as long for roughly 11.5 minutes. So what got cut? In a word, heart. When Steppenwolf first arrives, Snyder shows Amazons reacting with concern and resolve across Themyscira when he declares, "I will bathe in your fear." Hippolyta yells, "Daughters of Themyscira, show him your fear," to which the Amazons bellow, "We have no fear!" Love it. As the battle progresses, Snyder is at pains to register the deaths of the Amazons as they fall when the vault is sealed. Rather than Steppenwolf easily breaking through the door, Hippolyta watches the entire structure collapse into the ocean, and Snyder's camera lingers on her anguish at the deaths of all the warriors inside. Their sacrifice makes Steppenwolf's escape from the ocean that much more impactful and shocking. Steppenwolf's attack on the fields of Themyscira also is more brutal in the Snyder Cut, another striking difference between the two versions. Whedon's Justice League, like almost every theatrically released superhero movie, is rated PG-13, which means its violence is largely bloodless. The Snyder Cut, however, is rated R, which means the violence is much, much bloodier. When Wonder Woman stops a crew of nihilistic terrorists from blowing up a bunch of school kids in London, in both versions she bursts into the room and throws the terrorists against the wall. In Whedon's version, this fight is over in a few seconds, and the camera cuts away before we see any of the terrorists actually hit a wall. In the Snyder Cut, however, not only do we see multiple terrorists make impact, some of them head first, we also see the blood splatter left behind once they slump, lifeless, to the floor. Whedon also cut the coda to this scene when Wonder Woman checking on the school kids, she sees one girl huddled on the ground. "Can I be like you someday?" Well, I fucking love that bit. The girl asks, "You can be anything you want to be," Diana answers. Fucking beautiful. The violence in the Snyder Cut carries through to the ending. After Superman joins the battle and begins kicking the living crap out of Steppenwolf. In Whedon's version, Superman and Wonder Woman team up to destroy Steppenwolf's giant axe. When Steppenwolf reacts with fear, the parademons swarm and begin to devour him, and he teleports away. His ultimate fate, unknown. Snyder takes a more definitive approach. Superman beats Steppenwolf so badly that he breaks off one of his horns, and then Aquaman impales him on his trident. Then Wonder Woman slices off his head and sends him back through the open portal to his home planet of Apocalypse, where it lands at the foot of Steppenwolf's leader, Darkseid. Darkseid's bent on total control of the universe. Darkseid has loomed so large for so long in the DC universe that he directly inspired his Marvel Comics counterpart Thanos. But other than Steppenwolf saying for Darkseid off camera, the character is missing entirely from Whedon's Justice League. Putting Darkseid back in Justice League is one of the many major elements Snyder restored to his version of the movie. In Whedon's film, Steppenwolf is the one who leads an army to conquer Earth, with the mother boxes only to be repelled by an army of Atlanteans. Amazons, humans, Greek gods, and Green Lanterns in the Snyder Cut. It's Darkseid back too. Is Darkseid's fixation on finding the anti-life equation a formula that allows whoever wields it to hold total control over the minds of all sentient life? There's no mention of anti-life in Whedon's Justice League, but in the Snyder Cut, Steppenwolf rejoices at realizing that it's on Earth. That realization gets at one of the best parts of the Snyder Cut. The motivation for all the characters are so much clearer in Whedon's version. Steppenwolf is bent on conquest because that's what evil characters do in these movies. In the Snyder Cut, he's been cast out of Apocalypse for defying Darkseid, and he sees conquering Earth as his best chance at redemption. The Snyder Cut also does a much better job of explaining what the mother boxes actually are and why all of a sudden Steppenwolf is keen on them. Zack Snyder's Justice League opens with the death of Superman in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, and as we see Clark's death rattle echo throughout the planet, we witness each of the 3 mother boxes jolt to life. But that doesn't mean Steppenwolf has an easy time finding them. Unlike in Whedon's film, where Steppenwolf just seems to know where the Atlantean mother box is, Snyder spends time tracking Steppenwolf's hunt to find it, including using a creepy spidery mind-reading tech on kidnapped Atlantean soldiers. Steppenwolf is putting in the work, which makes his drive much more compelling. The biggest addition to the Snyder Cut, however, involves the backstory for Miller's Barry Allen and Fisher's Victor Stone. They were cut whole cloth from Whedon's version, which introduces each character and their abilities early on and then mostly takes them as a given. One of the most entertaining sequences in the Snyder Cut is Barry's first major scene in Central City, in which he witnesses Iris West, Kiersey Clemens, get into a car accident as he's applying for a job at a doggy daycare facility, and he literally bursts out of his shoes to save her. I love the fact that the shoes come off, because that's a physical reality, isn't it? Victor, meanwhile, is practically a different character in the Snyder Cut. In a flashback, we see his mother, Eleanor Karen Bryson, defending him for hacking into the Gotham University's computer system to help a classmate whose family had lost their home. And remember that explosion that begged for more detail in Snyder's film. It's a car wreck as Victor and Eleanor drive home from a winning football game that Victor's father, Silas J. Morton, missed again. Rather than dive into his abilities, as he does in Whedon's version, Victor explores them with trepidation. In the Snyder Cut, blinded by the fury he feels for his father, it's only after Silas leaves a recording in which he outlines what Victor can do now as Cyborg that we get a full sense of Snyder's ambition for the character. He's the absolute master of the digital world, who can control everything from the global economy to the world's nuclear arsenal at will. In other words, Victor is the god of technology who has to choose to use his limitless abilities for good. We see him do so with a single mother, C. Amanda Maud, whose punishing financial struggles Victor alleviates by placing $100,000 into her bank account. Barry's abilities are also much more robust in the Snyder Cut. To prevent new mother boxes from uniting, Victor needs to be blasted literally inside them, which Barry's only able to do by building up a massive electrical charge with his speed. But he falls and fails. The mother boxes unite and the world begins to end, at which point Barry runs so fast that he begins to run backwards in time. He breaks the speed of light. Some of these cuts were necessary to meet Warner Brothers' mandate for a 2-hour runtime. The final battle in the Snyder Cut doesn't occur until just after the 3-hour mark, but it's also clear that Whedon and his collaborators believed the Justice League heroes were just too powerful, that watching gods be godlike was inherently less interesting. Snyder clearly disagrees. Snyder's right. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of other changes between the two Justice League movies, both big and small. Snyder uses the boxy and IMAX-friendly 1.33:1 aspect ratio to give his characters more vertical stature. When Superman returns, we see him choose a new costume, a black suit, from a suit of options. We meet Silas's Star Labs colleague Ryan Choi, Sehang K, who in the comics becomes the superhero Atom, and William Dafoe shows up as Arthur's Atlantean mentor Voco, meant to tease his later appearance in 2018's Aquaman. Lois Lane Amy Adams is housebound and overcome with grief in the Snyder Cut when Martha Kent Diane Lane visits to tell her to find her way back to the living. We learn that in fact Martha is really the shape-shifting DC superhero known as Martian Manhunter, who's been hiding in plain sight as the military official Calvin Swanwick, Harry Lennox in Man of Steel, and Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. When Lois does decide to return to the world, Snyder's camera curiously lingers on a pregnancy test. We never learn the result. And of course, there's the epilogue, which Snyder shot last year mainly so Affleck's Batman and Jared Leto's Joker would be able to share a scene together. The scene set within a post-apocalyptic nightmare world in which Superman has succumbed to the anti-life was meant by Snyder to indicate where he planned to take the Justice League saga in 2 subsequent movies. Those films almost certainly will never come to pass. Snyder said as much to Variety, but it's also clear that Snyder's original vision for Justice League should have been able to stand on its own from the start. Perhaps not at 4 hours, but also definitely not at 2. Had Warner Brothers kept faith with Snyder, the studio could not only have avoided years of bad press, but enjoyed the benefits of a filmmaker's vision seen to completion. We'll never know what that could have looked like, but at least we now know that's what Snyder intended. This is a brilliant article. I don't know if we've read this before together here on Movies TV Mad, or Big Mouth as I was then, but it's absolutely fantastic. So as Adam B. Very says, this could have all been avoided. But how? Let's go back to the inception of the DCEU. The inception of the DCEU pretty much is David Goyer having an idea for a Man of Steel, for a Superman film. Now, the issue here is that, you know, Christopher Nolan and David Goyer are good friends. So it's Christopher Nolan who goes to Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers can't say no to Nolan. Whatever he wants, he's going to get. He's in the middle of completing a Batman trilogy that's hugely popular and successful. They want Nolan to continue to work with them. So there's no way of getting out of this. They have to fulfill the script by David Goyer and Nolan's ideas. Nolan said to them pretty early on, I don't want a Godfather, a DC Extended Universe. Here's your man, Zack Snyder. And Warner Brothers are like, we worked with him before. We co-worked with him before with another studio, with Watchmen. That didn't work out too well for us. But they can't say no, because this is what Nolan wants. And we've already discussed that what Nolan says goes. Obviously, that's changed now since the day and date argument. But back then, Nolan was God to them. And so they have to say yes to everything. So Snyder's coming in. It's unavoidable. No one can back out of this. This is the problem. It would have been a brave person to say, you know what, fuck off, Chris, we're going to do our own thing. Maybe that's what they should have done. As you know, I love Zack Snyder and I love his 3 DC movies. But anyway, so Snyder's in there. So how could we have avoided this problem? You can't cut off something like they did. You know, like Kathleen Kennedy did with Solo: A Star Wars Story and bringing another director. At the end of the day, right, they had to persevere with Snyder just to end that. And we know that Snyder was even going to introduce his own Flashpoint so they could bring in a new creative and start again. The Snyder Cut is 4 hours long, right? So they could have cut the other 2 Justice League movies if they lost faith in him, which they did. But what they could have said, Zack, is, Zack, you have 3 hours to tell one Justice League spanning story. You have to tell your original Justice League story, your Justice League 2, and your Justice League 3 in these 3 hours. You have to condense it in this movie. Now, of course, Zack would have been very upset about this, but at least he could have finished off his story. I think that's the only way they could have come to an agreement. Now, I don't know if Zack would have agreed to this. Now, that's one way of doing it. So now, we have this situation where the fans want more. I want more, you want more. So yesterday, Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut was finally released on hard copy, DVD, Blu-ray and 4K. Now here in Europe and the rest of the world, it's been available for us for a very long time. Now because of HBO Max, the good people of America it wasn't available to them, but it was available to them yesterday. And there was a big event, you know, I think, what was it called? Was it Restore the Snyderverse Homecoming or something like that? Anyway, the hashtag did really well and the shelves were cleared out. Every copy of this film on hard copy on its opening day of release was sold out. Warner Brothers have made a bundle of money on this film on HBO Max digitally all over the world. You know, and now hard copy all over the world and in America. So this movie has made money for them. Now, I don't think a company like AT&T can make a decision at this moment, not with the incoming Warner Brothers Discovery coming in at the middle of next year. I think this is a situation, unfortunately for them and for AT&T, that's going to have to cross over to David Zaslav and Discovery. And they're going to have to look at the Snyderverse, because it's never going to end. It's never going to end. People are going to keep on fighting. These people, when they're 90, are going to keep on fighting for this. It'll be a bit too late then, but you know what I mean. So this is something that Zaslav and Discovery are going to have to look at. And, you know, it's obvious. It's made money. People like it. Now, it's clear that no business person is going to go to Zack Snyder, have the whole thing. Maybe Zaslav would do that, but I doubt it. But you never know. You never know. But with the multiverse, restoring the Snyderverse, as I've said in many, many videos, his best opportunity to be restored is through the multiverse strategy. If they just did that to begin with, then there wouldn't be this bad feeling and this bad taste in the mouth, would it? But I've said to you before, I get the feeling that Warner Brothers and AT&T did want to restore the Snyderverse, and I think the problems with Ray Fisher and Zack Snyder speaking publicly about the past and exposing the studio put that to bed. But maybe Ann Sarnoff has thought about this a little bit more. And maybe she's spoken to David Zaslav, and maybe it has been decided that they will restore the Snyderverse. Now, it's very, very interesting, because Zack Snyder's doing his own stuff, Army of the Dead franchise over on Netflix, and Rebel Moon, which is based on Snyder's idea for a Star Wars series. You know, so I'm very excited about that. So he's going to be busy next year, for most of next year, if not all next year. So even if it was restored next year, he couldn't touch it. So he wouldn't be able to work on any of this, I think, till 2023. We're going to have to wait and see what happens, but the fight isn't dying. The fight isn't dead. You know, I will celebrate anyone who fights for the restoration of the Snyderverse in a good, pure way. I just don't agree with people, you know, putting down directors and other DC properties, movies and TV shows. That's my only issue. And if you do it properly, I'm fine with you. This has been the DCEU Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. And I will see you again in the next installment of the DCEU Daily. Until then, goodbye.